Using the audio push to mute. Please turn on this audio. Hare Krishna. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to Srimad Bhagavatam class. Welcome. It's my greatest pleasure to have this opportunity to speak. Is it okay? The camera's okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good.
So this morning we're speaking on, we're reading the 10th canto, chapter 11, and verses 10 and 11. So I'll begin with the invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So I'll just read the verses and translation and purport, and then I'll also be reading from Sarata Darshan, which is Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, because there's not extensive purports given by Prabhupada, and I need some guidance. I don't know how to turn this pastime, so I need some guidance from the acharyas. And I ask all of you to bless me, and just I pray that I can represent Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra nicely. So let's just over here. Once a woman selling fruit was calling, "O inhabitants of Vrajabhumi, if you want to purchase some fruits, come here." Upon hearing this, Krishna immediately took some grains and went to barter as if he needed some fruits. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Aborigines, I don't know how to say it, generally go to the villages to sell fruits. How much the Aborigines were attached to Krishna here is described. Krishna, to show his favor to the Aborigines, would immediately go purchase fruits, bartering with paddy in his hand, as he had seen others do. I'll just read the report from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Krishna bestowed bliss upon all the residents of Vrindavan, including the Pulindas, who were aborigines, or the lowest class among the Vrajavasis. Achyuta is full in every respect, and he himself provides fruits for everyone. Yet, desiring some fruits, he quickly went out with a handful of grains, as only that was available at the moment. Allah Fikrayinitasya Chitatamya Karatavya Avera Puraya Ratnai Allah Bandama Puricha. While Krishna was going on very hastily, most of the grains he was holding fell. Nonetheless, the fruit vendor filled Krishna's hands with the fruits, and her fruit basket was immediately filled with jewels and gold. In Bhagavad Gita 9:26, Krishna says, "Patram puspam phalam taya, yomi bhaktya prayasati, tadaham bhaktya uparitam, asami prayata." Krishna is so kind that if anyone offers him a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or some water, he will immediately accept it. The only condition is that these things should be offered with bhakti. Otherwise, if one is puffed up with false prestige, thinking, I have so much opulence, I'm giving something to Krishna, one's offering will not be accepted by Krishna. The fruit vendor, although a woman belonging to the poor Aborigine class, dealt with Krishna with great affection, saying, Krishna, you have come to me to take some fruit in exchange for grains. All the grains have fallen, but still you may take whatever you like. Thus she filled Krishna's palms with whatever fruits he could carry. In exchange, Krishna filled his whole basket with jewels and gold. Reported by Chakravarti Thakur. The fruit seller did not even get a full handful of grains because the grains fell on the path as Krishna hastily approached her. Krishna exchanged the few grains remaining in his hand for some fruits while saying, give me some fruit. The Pulinda woman selling fruits became overcome with affection and filled Krishna's hands with pilu and other fruits. Being greedy for the fruits, Krishna somehow managed to hold them all in his small hands by the influence of his Aishvarya Shakti. In return, the Pulinda woman received all types of wealth, including the treasure of Krishna Prem from Sri Krishna, who possesses the power to bestow all fruits. Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayamrupa Vadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamanam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajata Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Kupika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tatta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namah Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachari Yedishesha Shinvari Paschatya Deshatari Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Evan Prabhu, Hare Krishna. The humanity at large says that they're having difficulties hearing you, and there is also some banging. Can you move the camera a little closer? Yes. Nice. Thank you.
So us at the Bhakti Center in the temple room, we have a painting depicting this pastime. It's a very sweet painting. Krishna's basically naked. He just has a little gold chain around his waist and some decorations around his arms and hair. But he's very young, and he's just kind of sporting around in these ankle bells and this gold chain around his waist, just barely covering him. And yeah, it's depicted. I was looking at a few different takes on this pastime just to really churn the nectar out of it as much as I could. And it's said that the Aboriginal woman, she was so charmed by Krishna And she actually hadn't seen Krishna up close before. And she was trying to sell her fruits, but she was having a little bit of trouble just staying stationary. So she went door to door. And then she thought, this is my opportunity to have darshan of Krishna. And then, Krishna had seen previously, he'd seen Nanda Maharaj barter. My friend, the way that she told this pastime, she said, I love this pastime when Krishna learns about capitalism. Because he observed that Nanda Maharaj had, traded grains and gotten fruits in exchange. So Nanda Maharaj had gone, and Mother Yashoda was doing her daily household activities. And Krishna wanted some fruit. He wanted to have this pastime, have this loving exchange, and taste the nectar of the mango of devotion. And so he grabbed a handful of grains, and I want to read actually. This is described in Krishna book and also the chapter summary and Prabhupada also gives a little some jewels that aren't written in the verse or purport itself. So he says, one day a fruit vendor approached Nanda Maharaj's house, and Krishna gathered some food grains with his little palms and went to the vendor to exchange the grains for fruit. On the way, almost all the grains fell from his hands, only 1 or 2 grains remaining. But the fruit vendor, out of full affection, accepted these grains in exchange for as much fruit Krishna could take. As soon as she did this, her basket became filled with gold and jewels. And then in the Krishna book, he says, in those days, exchange was by barter. Therefore, Krishna might have seen his parents acquire fruits and other things by bartering grain. And so he imitated. But his palms were very small, and he was not very careful to hold the grains tight. So he was dropping them. Just imagine little Krishna in his ankle bells and his gold chain around his waist, running into the courtyard with a palmful of grains. But his hands are so small, so there's not much to begin with. And also, he's kind of just loosely holding on to them. So in that way, you can meditate on Krishna's cute lotus hands holding some grains, dropping them through the holes of his fingers, between his fingers. We can meditate on Krishna's lotus hands. The vendor who came to sell fruits saw this and was very much captivated by the beauty of the Lord. And then he says, the Lord is the bestower of all benedictions. If someone gives something to the Lord, he is not the loser. He is the gainer by 1,000,000 times. So, wow, it's already 7:30. There's a lot it's a very simple pastime, but there's so much to unpack. So there's 2 themes that immediately jump out to me. Well, 2 broad themes, you can say. And just for context, we're in the 10th canto, and this chapter is called Krishna's Childhood Pastimes. So I just want to take a moment of gratitude to appreciate the gift of hearing this being allowed to access these confidential, intimate pastimes of the Lord. Intimately knowing the absolute truth. There's so many people in this world that have no idea who Krishna even is. They don't even think about the absolute truth, let alone in the impersonal conception or the Christian conception or any of these other incomplete conceptions. Some people know about Krishna, but they don't really even know about these beautiful, intimate pastimes. So just taking a moment of gratitude to Prabhupada and how merciful he is for translating and spreading this so that we can taste the nectar of Krishna's transcendental, very sweet, intimate Brajabhumi pastimes. And the fact that we're all hearing this right now means that Krishna is revealing this to us. It's not any coincidence. Krishna is showing you who he is. Krishna is inviting you to this very intimate part of his personality. It's something that is very rare. So we're all very, very fortunate to be hearing this and reading this. And I'm extremely fortunate to have the opportunity to speak about it. So that is just a moment of gratitude. And as I was saying, Krishna wanted to have this exchange of love. There's a bhajan written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Saranagati. And at the very end, it says, your pleasure is the essence of everything. And so the entire purpose of everything is to give Krishna pleasure. And he gets the most pleasure out of the love of the residents of Braj. And Krishna has everything. He's full in all 6 opulences. He's Atmaram. He's fully satisfied. And yet he still is chasing the sweet nectar and the sweet love of those who are just simple-hearted and giving everything to him, just adoring him. It's very difficult to understand sometimes for new people or outsiders that, I mean, even Lord Brahma and Lord Indra, as we'll read later in the 10th canto, they were bewildered, thinking that how can Krishna be so vulnerable? How can the Supreme Lord be this little boy? But the residents of Vrindavan, they don't think of Krishna in his Aishvarya mood. They don't. Sometimes it comes up that Krishna is God, but very quickly that becomes covered over again by their pure love for him. So that's a theme we've been talking about for a lot of the 10th canto thus far. So I won't go so much into that. And then the other theme, I just want to touch on briefly, is that, this is a fruit seller, and she's giving her fruits to Krishna. So what does this remind you of? What is the idea of giving fruits to Krishna? What does that remind you of? That's a good one. Yes, that was mentioned in the purport. Adipursha Prabhu was mentioning 926, Bhagavad Gita. I was thinking of another section of the Bhagavad Gita in which Krishna is talking about karma yoga. He's talking about how you should do your duty and offer the fruits to him. That's a major theme of the Bhagavad Gita. And later he says, Yat karoshi yadasnasi, everything you do should be an offering to Krishna. So I'm not super qualified to talk about, how to offer your fruits to Krishna, because as soon as I found out about Krishna, I haven't made any money. I just kind of moved to the temple and forgot about everything. But for those of you who are grihastas or making money in some way, then this lesson is relevant to you. But like I said, I don't know much about that. That's very much relevant to the Bhagavad Gita. Then the final theme that I'll be talking about is Krishna's charm, and how she was so much captivated. This fruit seller was so much captivated upon seeing Krishna close up, face to face, that she just surrendered everything very naturally. It wasn't like an external thing, like, oh, this is Krishna, this is the Lord, so I have to give everything to him. It was a very natural outpouring of love. It wasn't, I was just hearing, I'm planning my trip to Vrindavan in November for the first time, and I'm hearing Radha Swami's book, The Journey Home, and how he came across Vrindavan, how he came to Vrindavan, his experience in Vrindavan. I totally lost my train of thought. Someone remind me what I was talking about. Before that. Okay.
His experience in
Yeah. I was going somewhere with it. I totally forgot. Anyway, no, it's not coming back. Anyway, Krishna was so captivating, and in Vrindavan, this fruit seller was seeing him close up, face to face. And so she sees his big, dark lotus eyes. She sees his short hair. He was very young at the time. His hair was still short, but very full. And his curls were dark black, very shiny. They were framing his face very nicely. He had a deep, dark complexion, like that of the color of a fresh monsoon cloud. He had soft lotus hands that are pinkish in the palms. And his belly, you know how children have a little belly sticking out, like sticking it out. And upon seeing this, her heart was stolen. So how do we have our hearts melted? How do we have our hearts stolen by Krishna? I remember what I was going to say, by the way, but I'm going to ask you guys, how do you get your heart stolen? How do you fall in love with Krishna? This is an open-ended question. No. Well, maybe if you're seeking material gain. What is the process, really, was what I'm asking. She said the six. Yes. She was saying that the 6 opulences is how you fall in love with Krishna. We're not very attracted to Krishna by his opulence, but we're attracted to Krishna by his sweetness. And so the process to be attracted to Krishna, the process to fall in love with Krishna is just to hear about Krishna. That's the first anga of bhakti. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. So the foremost processes are hearing and chanting. But first, hearing is foremost. It's listed as the first for a reason, because to chant, to remember, to serve, to offer everything, you have to have heard. You have to have heard from a bona fide source. And in the nectar of instruction, nectar of devotion, the most important items of devotional service are to hear, to inquire from a bona fide spiritual master. And then in that way, so I'm going to go back to my point so I don't lose it. Radhanath Swami was talking about this one Babaji, Krishna Das Babaji, and he was so impressed with his dedication to the practice. He said that on Ekadashi, every Ekadashi, he would stay up all night until sunrise. And he would just chant. He would sit under a tamarind tree, and he would just chant. And Maharaj was new at the time, but he was very austere, so he could meditate. He joined him every time. But Krishnadas Babaji was like 70 or something. Maharaj was like 20. But he was having so much trouble. He said he was almost falling asleep. But Krishnadas Babaji was just totally absorbed all night. And then he writes, Radhanath Swami realized that it wasn't a discipline for him. It wasn't a ritual. It was the natural outpouring of affection and devotion to Krishna. So to get to that stage where loving Krishna is not something we have to force ourselves to do, chanting is not something we have to force ourselves to do, even hearing Bhagavatam is not something that you're forcing yourself to do. You simply have to sit and just receive the nectar Krishna is all attractive. We don't have to try to be attracted to him. Just like the north end of a magnet doesn't have to try to be attracted to the south end. Or I don't know if it's the other way around. Which one does the attracting? I think they're attracted to each other. But that's our nature. That's Krishna's nature. Krishna literally means all attractive. And so there's not so much effort and like force. It's a very natural thing. You just hear Krishna's pastimes, and then you can chant, and then you can remember, and then you can serve, and then you can spontaneously serve. You can naturally be attracted to Krishna, and that is really what Lord Chaitanya came to give. It wasn't just serve Krishna because you're told to do so. It's serve Krishna because you want to. And you have to know who Krishna is. Prabhupada says, if you didn't know me, would you surrender unto me? Would you know, like knowing nothing about me, would you surrender to me? He asked one disciple. And she was trying to please Prabhupada, so she said, yes. And he was like, I don't think so. So we have to get to know who we're surrendering to. We have to get to know who we're loving eternally. And you have to hear from a bona fide source. You have to hear. Otherwise, you make up some idea of who Krishna is in your mind. And that's actually very much warned against. So you hear, and then you become attracted naturally, because that's Krishna's nature. He's all attractive. I can't remember where I was reading it, but it said that Krishna, oh yes, it was the discussion between Lord Chaitanya and Ramananda Roy. It says that Krishna is all attractive to everyone. Women, men, animals, plants, everyone. Everyone is attracted to Krishna because that's our nature, that's his nature. So it's not an artificial imposition on the mind, Prabhupada says. And then I'm a little bit hesitant to say what I'm about to say, but I do have a lot of shastric evidence to back it up. And so this is my idea to represent Shastra and kind of clear up whatever misunderstandings or mental doubts we might have. But a lot of times I hear devotees hesitant to speak about certain pastimes of Krishna because we're not pure enough. Or we're kind of afraid, or we're shying away from getting to know who Krishna is. And that must be there. Of course, Prabhupada said the policy should be that we may not understand gopis like ordinary girls or like that. We should be very careful to present the gopis. It does not mean that we shall not even utter the name of the gopis. We have taken a vow to boycott the gopis. No, they are our worshipful devotees. How can we avoid them? So in that way, some of the devotees, this was in 1969, room conversation with Prabhupada. Some of the devotees were saying, we shouldn't talk about the gopis, it's too high. And he said, no, we can't avoid them. We shouldn't be shy, but we should be careful to not present them in a way that they will be misunderstood. But in a sangha of people who are already accepting Krishna, already accepting that he's not an ordinary person and the gopis are not ordinary girls, it is very, very crucial that we hear about Krishna in Vrindavan, because this is what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give. This is what Prabhupada came to give for Janjanandan and Krishna, not just Nrsingadev or Dwarkadish Krishna. This intimate love. This is what we're being offered, and if we're not taking it, then it's honestly our responsibility, and it's our loss. And so, just to make this point, I'll read some quotations from Krishna book to make the point that purification does not equal attraction to Krishna. There's many examples of devotees in the Bhagavatam who are totally free from Maya. Like the 4 Kumars, they were liberated. Sukadeva Goswami was liberated. But they were still not attracted to Krishna until what? Until they heard about Krishna. And this fruit seller's heart was not melted until she saw Krishna face to face. She didn't get Krishna prema until she saw Krishna face to face, and he blessed her with that. And so we should see Krishna. We can't see Krishna right now, but we can see Krishna through the words of the acharyas, through the lens of Shastra. And we should not shy away from seeing Krishna. We don't have to wait to hear about Krishna. It's actually the other way around. The 9 stages of devotional service is such that it's Shravanam, Kirtan, Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, the execution of devotional service, which includes hearing and chanting. And then after that is Anartha Nivritti, the removing of unwanted qualities, the purification of the heart. And so it's not that we have to be, it's not Anartha Nivritti and then Bhajana Kriya. It's not that we have to be pure before we hear about Krishna in Vrindavan, before we can relish that. Because like I said, purification doesn't mean that you're attracted to Krishna. Attracted to Krishna, we are detached from, we are purified to the degree that we are attracted to Krishna. We are, to the degree that you are attached to Krishna, that is the degree that you will be detached from material energy. And Prabhupada makes this point very, very frequently in his books, in his purports, that you can't just detach from material world. You have to be attached to something positive, because it's our nature to be loving and attracted to and attached to something. So in that way, it's very natural. And he said to devotees, you don't have to do anything, just add Krishna. Just add Krishna. And the only thing that you need to give up is that which prevents you from adding more and more Krishna. And Nityananda Chandra and I were speaking about how having a reading sadhana is so important. Having a hearing sadhana is so important. And we vow to chant 16 rounds a day. Some spiritual masters make their disciples vow to read an hour of Prabhupada's books every day, or just read Prabhupada's books every day. And I haven't come across so many people in my sanghas that are very, that prioritize that as much as their 16 rounds. So Nityananda Chandra said that he heard from, I don't know who it was, but he said that, and I personally don't do this, and but he said that you should read before chanting, because otherwise, you're going to get your rounds done, because there's a lot of emphasis on that, completing that daily prescribed number of rounds. But there's not so much of an emphasis on reading. So if you do it before, then it's sure to happen. And in this Kartik is starting October 9th, I believe. Sharad Purnima is the 9th. And so in that very, very sacred time of Damodar month, we can hear about Krishna in Vrindavan every single day. If you can't vow to read an hour every day, just for that 1 month, you can make a little vow and read some of Krishna's pastimes, read Krishna book every day. So I think that point has been made. I'll just read some more. I'm going to end very soon. I'll just read some excerpts from the Krishna book that also make this point that you don't have to be a Mahabhagava. You don't have to be totally pure to hear about Krishna. You don't have to be completely free from lust to hear about Krishna and the gopis. It's actually the other way around. In the Krishna book, Prabhupada says, it is just to captivate the conditioned souls. Since they are very much attracted by sex, they can enjoy the same life with Krishna and thus become liberated from the material condition. In the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Maharaj Parikshit also explains that the pastimes and activities of Lord Krishna are medicine for the conditioned souls. If they simply hear about Krishna, they become relieved of the material disease. They are addicted to material enjoyment and are accustomed to reading sex literature. But by hearing the transcendental pastimes of Krishna and the gopis, they will be relieved of material contamination. He also writes, the most dangerous aspect of contamination is lust or sex life. Devotional service is so potent that the more one advances in this line, the more he loses his attraction for material life. One who is actually deriving benefit from hearing the Rasa Lila dance surely achieves the transcendental position. He surely loses all traces of lust in his heart. And then there's one more. Oh, I didn't include it in my notes. But yes, this is just the point that it's so important to hear about Krishna, and there should be nothing preventing us from hearing. Not, I don't have time because I'm on Instagram or Netflix or YouTube. I'm hearing mundane sound vibration, or I'm too busy chanting my rounds. I'm too busy. We shouldn't make any, or I'm not pure enough. That's the most common. I'm not qualified. We shouldn't make any excuses to not hear about Krishna. That is the principle. Maharaj Parikshit, this whole Bhagavatam is hearing. Maharaj Parikshit achieved perfection simply by hearing. Only one of the angas of bhakti can, if it's completely carried out with perfection, then it brings perfection. And there's nothing else needed. So in that way, you can, when you know who Krishna is, when you hear who Krishna is, when you see him through the lens of Shastra, he will naturally melt your heart and you'll naturally want to chant. You'll naturally want to hear more. And in that way, you'll develop a loyam, a greed, a lobha, a hankering to hear more and more and more. And then in that way, it's not that you become Krishna conscious, you're engaged in service 24 hours a day, simply by forcing yourself to be. It's a very natural process. It's a scientific process. And it comes about simply by hearing Krishna with full attention from a bona fide source. So with that, I'll leave time for any comments, questions, corrections, or reflections. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Prabhupada made a very sobering statement that there's no love in the material world. Oh my God. That's so heavy. There's no love, there's no pure love. And what is there is, we refer to it as business. I'm going to give this, I expect that. If I don't get that, I'm not giving this, Even the weddings these days, they have called a prenup, where they make a deal, and the whole thing, what's that? The book they wrote on the art of the deal, how to make a deal so that you get something, make sure you get a profit, On the other hand, in this pastime, we see that there's another dynamic in the spiritual world. When Krishna's involved, when people become purified, the natural love, which is not added on like a coat of paint, but it's normal, is you want to give as much as you can. And you want to take less and less. Prabhupada told us like that. Every year, try to give more. And every year, try to take less for yourself. You want to do more service, and that's the direction we're aspiring to go in. And the Kirata Hiranda Galinda Pukashadi, what is her? She's called Kirata Galinda? What is the Aborigine?
Yeah, Palinda.
Palinda. So there's a verse in the Bhagavatam that even the most degraded species of human beings that are exhibiting the lowest qualities of selfishness and, with less and less love and more animalistic propensities, can be uplifted and purified. And Rukmini is the classic example. She heard about Krishna. You're talking about how we heard about Krishna. She just heard about him. And then all these other suitors came, all these princes and kings and exalted personalities. She said, no, I only want Krishna. I don't want anybody else, right? And then Krishna came and captured her at her Swayamvara ceremony. We love that thing Prabhupada said that they were doing the play in the temple, and they were thinking, is it okay for a man to lift up a woman and put her on the chariot? Because it says Krishna lifted up Rukmini and put her on the chariot. So they were trying to stage that. And then when they were staging that in Dallas, Mangalananda Prabhu told us, Prabhupada said, no, he didn't lift up Rukmini and put her on the chariot, even though it says it right there in Krishna book. He said, Rukmini jumped on the chariot, and Rukmini was driving the chariot, and Krishna was in the back shooting arrows. So, you know, that giving ourselves to Krishna is where we're going with this. And it's wonderful and completely satisfying. We're not asking for anything. The gopis, Mataji said that the other day. It was this amazing class at Radhastami. She said, Krishna wanted to please them, but he said, the only thing that pleases you is when you're serving me. So I guess your service to me will have to be your satisfaction. I can't possibly reciprocate with you. Anyway, I'm talking too much. Let's see if anybody else has something to say. Thank you.
Angelica has her hand raised.
Okay.
Yes, Hare Krishna. This is a short comment I wanted to make earlier, but there wasn't time for this. I heard this from Bhakti Charuswami, which really touched me, and so I was just reminded of it very sweetly. And he was speaking about how Krishna is so attractive, and naturally, before we develop love, we have attraction, which essentially means that there isn't a soul or any living entity in the whole creation that doesn't have a potential and opportunity to actually deeply love Krishna. So I just wanted to share that because, it's just very touching.
Thank you.
Evan Prabhu, how do we, you're talking about Krishna in Vrindavan. How does that relate to Ananda Bihari Das in New York or Rich in Central Maine? Because we're in such a gutter, and Krishna in Vrindavan is such a lofty concept. How do we bring the two together?
Vrindavan is not geographic.
Vrindavan is not geographic, Adi Purush says. Prabhupada is giving us Vrindavan. He's giving us Krishna book. He's giving us Bhagavatam. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came. Like, we're extremely, extremely fortunate. And we have access to Vrindavan at any time. We can open the Krishna book. And in that way, get in touch with the utmost, the highest pleasure, the highest love. And so that has everything to do with you, if you want that. Does that answer your question? Cool.
Yeah, it does. It does. Thank you. I'll keep that in mind next time I walk out of my building and see a person overdosing on the sidewalk. I'll remember that Vrindavan is not a geographical term. It's very helpful. If I want it, it's available if I want it. I like it, Evan. Nice.
Okay. Are we opening the curtains now? A minute or two. Anything more from anyone online or in person?
Any reflections from our online audience? They're all very, very deep devotees. Okay, Rich, question for another day. Do the qualifications for successful independent reading differ from those for hearing from a devotee? As an experienced and deeply flawed aspiring devotee, I read Prabhupada's books for 2+ hours daily, but I found that even a minute of class led by an actual devotee like Evan Prabhu inspires my devotion infinitely more than my own overly academic reflections on my independent reading. That's the question. Thank you, Rich. Very intelligent.
Yes. Thank you very much for the question. Gaur Sharan Prabhu says that it's very important that we don't just read the books, but we read between the lines. And to do that, we need the association of of realized devotees. And I'm conscious about to blow, but yes, Sangha is also very, very important in hearing. Hearing Prabhupada's lecture, hearing from the mouth of the devotee.
Kurukshetra moment.
Impart knowledge that might not otherwise.
The lotus feet of our spiritual master is the only way in which we can attain devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great honor and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean to the suffering.
Mercy, Krishna.
My only wish is to have my consciousness purified
By the words emanating from his mouth.
Attachment to his lotus feet, affection fills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes.
And all knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema minutes. Thank you very much, dear devotees. Nice class. Evan Prabhu ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Rich from Central Man ki jai, Yogeshwari, Kartik, Suzanne, Angelika ki jai, Hare Krishna. Sunday for Krishna. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow is Monday. Monday for Krishna also. One day at a time for Krishna. Okay. Hare Krishna. Rich, you look so cozy.
Just cold, that's all.
All right. One day, yes. Hare Krishna. Stay